What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 8 of the Elephant Wire podcast, the show where we break down song lyrics and don't play you a damn second of the song because major labels are thieving babies that would sue us up the ass. This week's episode, we're going to be dissecting the song I Walk the Line by Johnny Cash. Let's get some.
Welcome to the Elephant Wire podcast. Music, drugs, laughter, lyrics.
Welcome, one and all, episode 8 of the Elephant Wire podcast. My name is Jake. I am your host. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll apologize right off the bat. I am just a touch hungover right now, so if my excitement level is not as up to par as usual, well, there you go. I'm hungover as fuck, and I apologize, as I said. But anyway, it's Thanksgiving week. That's exciting. Thursday, coming right up. Today is November something, and Thursday will be Thanksgiving. Very exciting. Now, I don't know if you guys are like me or not, but by far, every year, the most let down of the Thanksgiving meal is the bird. Absolutely. The reason to eat Thanksgiving meal is for all the sides. That's where it's at. Because I even, 4 or 5 times a year, I just get this wild hair up my ass, and I just like make a midnight grocery run and get sweet potatoes and mashed potatoes, or the russet potatoes to make mashed potatoes, and get some green bean casserole fixings and get some stuffing and make a bunch of gravy. And I make all the sides of a Thanksgiving meal and then spend, 2 to 3 days just eating all the sides of Thanksgiving meal in July, because why the fuck not? I'm a grown-ass man with a credit card. I can do whatever the heck I want. Nobody's going to stop me. Sometimes my wife tries to stop me. She hasn't succeeded yet, but I'm excited about all the sides on Thanksgiving. It's fantastic. And another cool thing, sometimes a cool thing, sometimes it's kind of an odd thing, is being a bunch of, being around all your family. It's very exciting. And I actually have some homework for you guys. I want you guys to see, because when you go to anchor.fm/the Elephant Wire podcast, there is an option that you can leave us a voice message. I want someone out there to convince one of their family members, whether it be your uncle, your aunt, a cousin. If somebody gets their grandma to do it, I personally will mail you a t-shirt and 5 stickers. That would be incredible. We haven't even released a t-shirt yet. I don't think. We might have. Sometimes it's tough to keep everything straight. But anyway, even if we haven't, I'll mail you a fucking t-shirt, because that shit is dope. If you get your grandma or an aunt or an uncle or a cousin or anybody to leave us a voice message telling us an awesome drug story from a show that they were at, that's what's up. That is your homework for this week, for this Thanksgiving, is to get a family member to leave us an awesome voice message from a show they were at. I one year at Thanksgiving, I was talking to an aunt of mine, and I asked her, what was the best show you ever went to? And she said, well, one time I was listening to the radio, and they were doing you could call in and you could win tickets. And she called in and she answered the question right, and she won tickets on the radio show. And they said, all right, you have your choice. You can go see the Beatles, or you can go see the Rolling Stones, because she's older than dirt. So this is like way a long time ago. He said, you can go see the Beatles, you can go see the Rolling Stones. And she went, oh, I have my whole life to see the Beatles, so I want to go see the Rolling Stones, because those guys are going to break up any time now. Yeah, it didn't actually turn out the way that she thought it was going to. But she said the Rolling Stones show, was fantastic. She said she had a great time, and that was the only time she ever saw the Stones. So, hey, who knows? Maybe she wouldn't have had another opportunity to see them. But that's my family member concert story that I have for you. But let's get right into it. We got Johnny Cash, I Walk the Line. I'm incredibly excited about this. Johnny Cash is one of my favorite musicians of all time. He's got to be in the top 3. He might be in the top 2. I'm not entirely sure. It's tough. It changes every day. But this song itself is absolutely one of my favorite Johnny Cash songs, and as we start to go through some of the accolades, this is by far one of the favorite Johnny Cash songs, much less songs of all time, of all people in history. So that's pretty dope. Um, but let's just get right into it. Enough dicking around. Here we go. John R. Cash, born February 26th, 1932. We lost Johnny Cash on September 12th, 2003. I remember that day very vividly. I was at my grandma's house. My family, we had driven from Chicago. We went down to visit grandma way, way, way down in southern Illinois. Um, and we were at her house, and the TV was just on all day. I would only assume it was on like, Turner Classic Movies or, country music television or one of those channels like that that my grandma's usually watching. And they were just showing all sorts of old videos and old shows and him playing, at San Quentin and him, him playing all just it. I just remember sitting on the floor and just staring at because I just recently in 2003 I just recently gotten my first guitar. I was like 11 or 12 or something like that, and I just remember staring at the TV the whole time and just being mesmerized. And that was really the first time I ever really knew who Johnny Cash was, and who he was as a musician, much less as a human being. And from that day forward, I mean, my mom and I, if we were around the house and, cleaning or cooking or something like that, I would always do my best as, like my 12 and 13-year-old voice changing voice to sing the daddy sang bass, and my mom would, mama sang tenor. And that was our song we would always sing, was Johnny Cash. And so I've been a big fan of Johnny Cash for a long time. I've been excited to do this episode for a long time. Um, and I actually had more of a difficult time trying to figure out which song I wanted to do. And to settle on this one, I walked the line. I think we made the right choice. I think we're going to have a good time today. Johnny Cash was nicknamed the Man in Black. He performed almost his entire career wearing a black suit with the jacket being long, like damn near knee-length coat, all in black. And this stood in direct contrast of everyone else in the scene, in the music scene, in the music that he was playing at the time. Everyone's wearing flashy cowboy boots and big hats and shirts with sequins and the tassels. And Johnny Cash wasn't about that. He even in 1971 he wrote the song "Man in Black," and just to kind of, I'm sure he was sick of getting the question, so he just figured, why don't I just do it in the only way I know how, and that's just to write a song about it. He wrote the song "Man in Black," and in that song he says, "We're doing mighty fine, I suppose, in our streak of lightning cars and fancy clothes. But just so we're reminded of the ones who were held back, up front there ought to be a man in black." I love that. Because if there's one thing Johnny Cash did his entire career, outside of stay humble, was that he fought for the downtrodden. He fought for the man that had no options or opportunities. And, saying it flat out here that we're doing mighty fine in our fancy cars and fancy clothes, but for the ones that are held back, there ought to be a man up front, man in black. That says more about Johnny Cash as a person than a lot of things that we're even going to go through here. And I mean, and to that degree, I mean, the amount of humility Johnny Cash had. I was, as I was going through this and as I was reading a few different things and watching a bunch of videos, I found it very peculiar because, it is difficult now to even remember the last time we were even at a live show and seeing a band or. But the way shows go now, I mean, the house lights go down, and then some music starts playing, and there's a fog machine, and there's maybe some lighting, and then a couple members of the band walk out, and then a couple more, and then they start to play, and then the lead singer comes out, and then they play a couple songs before, anyone, before they even introduce themselves. To where Johnny Cash would literally just walk out on stage, he would walk up to the microphone and said, "Hello, I'm Johnny Cash," and then he would start most concerts by playing Folsom Prison Blues. Just get right to it. He wasn't a flashy guy, he was the man in black. He just was humble. "Hello, I'm Johnny Cash." Not a lot to prove, because he didn't need to. His music and his career proved everything that it needed to for him. He didn't need to make a bunch of pomp and laud about it. But let's start to deep dive a little bit more. Johnny Cash's music career relatively began in 1953, is whenever he started to really start to pick up some steam. And he really started to get some accolades and get some weight behind him. His backing band that he had was referred to as the Tennessee Three, and they backed him for nearly 25 years. The same three cats, um, for 25 years, and he was he was known. Johnny Cash was known very specifically for the style of country western music that he played, and the way that it sounded. Um, and it was referred to many times as as freight train, or that freight train rhythm, that doom doo doom doo doom doo doom doo doom, the way the song almost like chugged along like an old choo choo train. And this had everything to do with his backing band, because back in the day they played to their strengths, and they weren't incredibly talented musicians. It's even funny to say. I mean, if you ask my grandma to this day, she says that Johnny Cash is a terrible singer. At the same time, the guy didn't necessarily sing. He more so talked his lyrics with some rhythm and slight melody to them. I think it's badass. I think it's super awesome that he wasn't this big boisterous singer. That he just you know he just went about it the way that he knew how. He played to his strengths. He never tried to be anyone that he wasn't. And even like I said, the Tennessee Three did the exact same thing, and they're known for that country music, that rockabilly genre. However, um, in 1980, he expanded the Tennessee Three. He expanded it, and renamed it the Great 80s Eight, and added five more people to his backing band. Um, and it would even more so really um, just bring that Johnny Cash sound to life, even more so than it already was with the Tennessee Three. Um, and as I said, I mean, he stayed mainly in the country and rockabilly genre. However, whenever you look at the accolades that come Johnny Cash's way, we really see how diverse his career actually was, because in 1977 he was inducted into the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame. In 1980 he was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. In 1992 he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And in 2010 he was inducted into the Gospel Music Hall of Fame. And in 2013 he was inducted into the Memphis Music Hall of Fame. Um, and I was reading one article in Rolling Stone, um, uh, uh, on his upon his death in 2003. The only other artist that was inducted as a performer into both the Country Music Hall of Fame and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was Elvis. So Elvis and Johnny Cash, upon Johnny Cash's death, were the only two performing musicians inducted into both Rock and Roll and Country Music Hall of Fame. And anytime you get into a category where Elvis's name is included next to yours, you're doing literally everything right. Except if that category obviously is stealing music from Chuck Berry, then obviously, and literally your dance moves and your sound and your lyrics and whatever else. But in almost every other category, if you're put up next to Elvis, then you're doing everything right. And I found it really interesting, after reading all those accolades that came Johnny Cash's way. In 1980, when he was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, he said that was his greatest professional achievement. And I found that very interesting. Of all the accolades that came his way, that was the one that made a difference to him. Um, was being inducted in the Country Music Hall of Fame, and it shows that was the one that he was honestly maybe not shooting for the entire time. A lot of times you don't understand what your goals and what your aspirations even are until you really start to understand what you're capable of. And to say that in 1953, when he was in Memphis just getting started, to say that he maybe set that as a goal. It is highly possible that that was one of his goals. However, by the time it came to fruition, he said that it was his greatest professional achievement. Another interesting story that I found whenever I was doing some more research on him, in 2003 at the MTV Video Music Awards, Johnny Cash's cover of Nine Inch Nails' "Hurt," which is by far one of my favorite covers of all time, even to the point that sometimes I like to pretend that Nine Inch Nails didn't write that song, that Johnny Cash is exclusive to. I don't mean to do that. I'm sorry, Nine Inch Nails fans, but it's so fucking good. It's so good, and it was nominated for 6 VMAs in 2003 at the MTV Video Music Awards. Now, the only VMA that the video ended up winning was Best Cinematography. Out of the six nominations that it got, was Best Cinematography. But even with those nominations, Johnny Cash became the oldest artist ever nominated for an MTV Video Music Award, which is hilarious, and I love it. That same year at the MTV Video Music Awards, Justin Timberlake, who won Video of the Year for Cry Me a River, said in his acceptance speech, "This is a travesty. I demand a recount. My grandfather raised me on Johnny Cash, and I think he deserves this more than any of us here tonight." I searched for a second for a video to see if I could find the actual speech that Justin Timberlake gave at that time. I didn't try very hard to find it because it didn't really matter. I already had the quote from an article I was reading. But I was also thinking too. I mean, it would be funny if, because at this point, at the MTV Video Music Awards in 2003, Johnny Cash's music career had been going for 50 years at that point. And to be sitting in that room in 2003, and just kind of transport yourself back to that time that Cry Me a River is winning Best Video. Just that timeline, that time of music. And Johnny Cash is sitting in that room, nominated for 6 different awards for his cover of Nine Inch Nails. It's fucking hilarious. It's so funny to me that that was even happening. But originally, way, way, way back in the day, the record label that Johnny Cash was signed to was the world-famous Sun Records in Nashville. However, very soon after his early albums, he signed a very, very lucrative deal with Columbia. And it was actually right after his album With His Hot and Blue Guitar, which is the album that the song we're talking about today comes off of. Now, the song we're talking about today, I Walk the Line, was originally released as a single on May 1st, 1956. It was recorded on April 2nd, 1956 at Sun Studios in Memphis, Tennessee. However, it came out on the album With His Hot and Blue Guitar. It also, that album title, it almost reminds me of back in the day, back in like 2003, back when the early years of Facebook, whenever your Facebook status started with "is," whether you wanted it to or not. So everyone's Facebook status was, mine was Jake Wiesner is, and then you'd make your Facebook status of, what is your status at the moment. So this album name, With His Hot and Blue Guitar, kind of reminded me of that. Johnny Cash with his hot and blue guitar. That album was released on October 14th, 1957. So quite a while after he had recorded the song, much less it came out as a single. But that album itself, it contained 4 of his hit singles that would be 4 songs that kind of defined his career, all 50 years of it. It had I Walk the Line, the song we're talking about today. It had Cry, Cry, Cry. It had So Doggone Lonesome. And it also had Folsom Prison Blues. 4 songs that he played his entire career, and to this day are just as big as they were back then. Now, the song I Walk the Line has been re-recorded a few times through Johnny Cash's career. There was obviously the recording that we're talking about today. Usually, whenever you see it, it's labeled as like a stereo recording or something like that, or remastered. But in 1964, for an album called "I Walk the Line," he recorded it again in 1969 at San Quentin, his live album at San Quentin. In 1970 for the "I Walk the Line" soundtrack, and then again in 1988 for the Classic Cash Hall of Fame series album. Now there's been there's been quite a few additional live performances that have been released over the years, especially since his passing. There's also even been a demo version that was recorded even before um, the formal recording in 1956. He had a recording session that it was released in 2011, an early demo of that song. Um, but "I Walk the Line" became Johnny Cash's first number one hit on the Billboard charts. It reached number 17 on the U.S. pop charts, and it stayed there for 43 weeks, which is insane. That's almost an entire year that it stayed on the pop charts. Um, and this song itself is included in the Rolling Stones' "The 500 Songs That Shaped Rock and Roll," which is a very esteemed list to make it onto. Also, a really good playlist. If you ever want to just listen to that playlist, 500 songs. It'll keep going for a while, but they're all hits. Great songs. And then in 2004, Rolling Stone magazine ranked "I Walk the Line" as number 30 on its list of the 500 greatest songs of all time, which is an insane accolade to be added to this song. And in 2004, Johnny Cash passed away in September of 2003. Yes, September of 2003. So this is after his passing. It's really interesting to think if Johnny would have been alive to see accolades like this. To be, that his song was number 30 on the 500 greatest songs of all time. If he would have been as, he would have been humbled by that because that is the man that he was, as the Man in Black. But would he have been as stoked, if you will, as a lot of artists would be? Because if there's one accolade that I think he honestly would have been over the top ecstatic about, is that in June of 2014, Rolling Stone magazine ranked "I Walk the Line" as the number one greatest country song of all time. And that is, I don't know who could ever knock it off the top. I really don't. I'm sure there's quite a bit of shuffling. If they keep remaking that list, I'm sure there's shuffling that goes down. But I don't know how "I Walk the Line" could ever be knocked off the top. I really don't. And whenever I say, as far as accolades, if Johnny Cash was still alive today, to see the accolades he continues to get, um, I think this might be one of the few that he would actually be impressed by. That it is the number one greatest country song of all time, um, by Rolling Stone magazine. And it's funny to think how he would react to that. That's something I've been thinking about the last few days as I've been researching this episode. Um, but the song itself is track 9 of 12 that comes off the album "His Hot and Blue Guitar," and it is about it's about marital fidelity. It's about, you know personal relationship. It's about making a promise, um, making yourself stand true to the promise that you've made. Um, Johnny Cash originally intended the song to be a slow ballad. However, the producer at Sun, Sam Phillips, wanted it to be a little bit of a faster arrangement. And Johnny Cash ended up growing to like the uptempo recording more, especially as it was met with the success that it was. That definitely helped. Um, but it right off the bat, being one of the first singles that anyone heard Johnny Cash, in a more grand scape, hitting the pop charts the way that it did. So many people hearing Johnny Cash for the first time, and hearing that freight train rhythm, and people got accustomed very quickly to, like, that's Johnny Cash. You know that voice, you know that sound, you know the Tennessee Three. And I think it honestly, I mean, if there's a springboard to his success, it's absolutely this song. Um, Maybe the other single in there, Cry, 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 also has that staple Johnny Cash sound that he carried the rest way through his career. Um, the song itself comes in at 2 minutes 43 seconds, um, which is a little shorter than especially shorter than any of the songs we've done so far. But relative to the time, relative to the genre, relative to Johnny Cash himself, this is about standard. 2 minutes 43 seconds, right around 3 minutes is usually where he tended to be. But it's one of the funny things listening to the song, um, because this song has absolutely been added to our Spotify weekly playlist. Listening to this song, one of the funny things that you notice right off the bat is before each verse, he hums, and I've heard it explained as haunting. I've heard it explained as weird. I've heard it explained as interesting. But the blatant reason why he does that, why before each verse he comes in like that, is because he had a lot of trouble staying on key. Because the way that the breakdowns between each verse, the song has no chorus, the breakdown between each verse, he had trouble staying on key and finding the key again for the next verse because of the notes and the melody in the breakdowns. So he decided, well, I'm just going to hum through it so I can just stay on key. Which, once again, I mean, this just follows suit of the man that Johnny Cash was. He wasn't trying to impress anybody. He was just being Johnny Cash, and Johnny Cash needed to hum between the verses, so he did. Um, but that's about all we got as far as the setup of this song. I am incredibly excited to get in there and dissect these lyrics. Welcome back, everybody. Before I start reading these lyrics, I just wanted to share one thing real quick. Um, in an interview that Johnny Cash did with Country Music Foundation, um, Johnny made the statement, "I wrote the song backstage one night in 1956 in Gladewater, Texas. I was newly married at the time, and I suppose I was laying out my pledge of devotion." Johnny Cash's first wife was Vivian Liberto, um, and as we go through and read these lyrics, the song is a bit up tempo. The song is like like we keep saying, it has that freight train roll to it. But as we go through these lyrics, imagine a man newly married making a promise to his new bride as he's out on the road, touring, city to city, and finding newfound fame as he does so, and um, the wills and the wants and the opportunities that are arising around him constantly, of women throwing themselves at him, and the drugs and the alcohol and the like I said, the opportunities that are constantly around him, of making that promise to stay true. I keep a close watch on this heart of mine. I keep my eyes wide open all the time. I keep the ends out for the tie that binds. Because you're mine, I walk the line. I find it very, very easy to be true. I find myself alone when each day is through. Yes, I'll admit that I'm a fool for you. Because you're mine, I walk the line. As sure as night is dark and day is light, I keep you on my mind both day and night. And happiness I've known proves that it's right. Because you're mine, I walk the line. You've got a way to keep me on your side. You give me cause for love that I can't hide. For you, I know I'd even turn the tide. Because you're mine, I walk the line. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's a fantastic jam. And one of the things that I wanted to throw out there too, as far as making that promise, I'm reminded of when my wife when my wife and I got married. We decided that we were going to write our own vows, and um, we fiddled around, joking with the idea that we were just going to pull them off the internet. Um, kept telling each other that. Um, and the entire time we were engaged, I just kept, I don't know, I got all up in my head about it. I didn't know what I was going to say. I didn't know what I was supposed to say. I didn't, you know, usually at weddings, the vows are really lame, and I didn't want to be lame. But there was one night, um, the dogs are laying on the couch. My soon-to-be wife is laying on the couch. I'm laying there, watching TV or playing video games or just dicking around on my phone. I don't remember what I was doing. But I remember just like looking over and looking at my wife for a minute, and as she was laying there asleep, it was probably 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night, so she had been passed out for a while. Um, and I just remember, like, all of a sudden, I just started thinking like about my vows, and I was like, what would I promise her? Like, what promises would I make to her? And it's funny to, like, as I read these lyrics, and him saying he wrote them backstage one night. And he says, I was laying out my pledge of devotion. He doesn't say anything that's over the top in this song. He doesn't get too in depth. He doesn't try to be, all poetic, if you will. I mean, there's a couple spots as we go through here that do get poetic in a way, but he's literally just the man that he's always been, in just saying, "Because you're mine, I walk the line." And let's just dive in here. Let's get in here. Verse 1. I keep a close watch on this heart of mine. I keep my eyes wide open all the time. Right off the bat, he is acknowledging the fact. He's maybe even acknowledging fears that his new bride has about him being on the road, of, as I said, of women throwing themselves at him. He's a famous singer, of club owners, of radio DJs, of anyone coming his way, everyone wanting something of him. And him saying, I keep a close watch on this heart of mine. I keep my eyes wide open all the time. He's on the alert. He's on the lookout. Honey, you know, he's promising Vivian, honey, I will stay alert. I will stay on guard. I will keep my eyes wide open all the time. And he says in the third line here, I keep the ends out for the tie that binds. And this is an interesting statement. To say he keeps the ends out, the only way that I was able to kind of figure out what that even meant was because whenever he says for the tie that binds, it seems as if he's making a reference to an old hymn, called Blessed Be the Tie That Binds. And the words of that song are, Blessed be the tie that binds our hearts in Christian love. The fellowship of kindred minds is like that to above. So this old Protestant hymn, it talks about having ties to the people within your church, your little community, the tie that you have with them, based off of your mutual love and support of each other. And so to whenever he says, I keep the ends out for the tie that binds, it's almost as if he's combining two schools of thought. By saying the tie that binds, like I said, he's referencing that Protestant hymn, but at the same time, by saying keep the ends out, it's almost like he's saying, like, keep the ends of the rope out, if it were. Because a lot of times, the tie that binds can also very well be translated as like a, as a, like an example of marriage, or kind of a picture of marriage, of a knot being tied together and being a strong knot. So saying, I keep the ends out for the tie that binds, he's saying, I keep on the ready to keep that knot tied with you. He's not pulling the rope away. He's keeping his end of the deal. He's keeping his end of the bargain, if you will. And then he ends, as he does each verse, because you're mine, I walk the line. Just because she has acknowledged him, just because she loves him, just because she is his, he walks the line. That's all the reason in the world that he needs, is just because she said yes. Just because she loves him, just because she's his, just because you're mine, I walk the line. And then we get into verse 2, and he right off the bat, I find it very, very easy to be true. Now, it is interesting. I mean, we might as well reference it now sooner than later, because his marriage did end because of infidelity, and they were divorced. He remarried. His second marriage lasted till the end of days. But he says here, I find it very, very easy to be true. I find myself alone when each day is through. So this, once again, this might even bring up some background, maybe a conversation that had happened prior, of, maybe a statement of, I know you're taking girls back to your hotel room. I know you're throwing parties. I know you're going over to people's houses. And in saying, look, I find it easy to be true. I find myself alone when each day is through. He's pleading his case at this point. Because he even tries to kind of win her over, in a sense, in the third line by saying, yes, I'll admit that I'm a fool for you. He admits that he does stupid things, but the stupid things that he does are for love, as everyone does. Everyone does stupid things for love. I've done stupid things for love. You find someone in love, and they're doing something stupid right now. I guarantee it. But he tries to win her back over. He makes those statements, those promises that I find it easy to be true to you. I'm alone. I promise. I'm not taking girls back to the hotel room. I'm being true to you. And then, I know I'm an idiot. You know I'm an idiot, but I'm an idiot. I'm your idiot. I'm a fool for you. And then once again, because you're mine, I walk the line. And as we get into verse 3, this is one example where he does start to get a little poetic in the third verse. He says, as sure as night is dark and day is light, I keep you on my mind both day and night. So basically, what he's saying here, and it's funny, as we're now on the 8th episode of this podcast. I'm sure we reference it at some point. It's tough to remember. If I haven't, I'll say it now. Music lyrics are subjective. Obviously, it's difficult to get in the mind of the artist, but that's the point of this show, is to try our best to get into the mind of the artist. And Johnny Cash obviously had the ability to be poetic. He's poetic in a multitude of his songs. And as I said before we started this one, he's very matter of fact, but at the same time, in this third verse, he does get a little poetic here for a second. In saying, as sure as night is dark and day is light, he's more so saying, things are matter of fact. I keep you on my mind both day and night. He doesn't even, there's no explanation that needs to be done. You don't need to explain to someone that it's dark at night and that the sun's out during the day. It just is. There's no explanation that needs to go into it. There's no added conversation that needs to go into it. As sure as night is dark and day is light, I keep you on my mind both day and night. He's also even saying here that he doesn't even have a choice in the matter. Everything that he does, every thought that he has, revolves around her. And he says in the third line, and happiness I've known proves that it's right. So he's not even batting an eye at the fact that this is happening. Every moment of the day, she is on his mind. Vivian's on his mind, and he's cool with it, because the amount of happiness that she has brought him proves that obviously everything is going the right way. To keep her on my mind is what's bringing me happiness. To keep her in my life. And it's even funny when in the recording of this song, he sings this "Because You're Mine, I Walk the Line." He sings it a little different. You can almost hear, like, in the way he's singing, you almost hear like his lip turn up, like he's smiling. And it's funny to think that, like, even as he was recording these lyrics, she popped into his head in this moment, and he had no choice but to smile. And, maybe he was thinking of something funny that had just happened recently. Maybe he was thinking of a way that she brought him happiness recently when he sang the lyrics, and happiness I've known proves that I'm right, or proves that it's right. It's funny to kind of hear that little nuance when he sings "Because You're Mine, I walk the line" in this third verse. Then to get into the fourth verse, he says, "You've got a way to keep me on your side," which is an interesting line because it could be taken a lot of ways. You've got a way to keep me on your side. Now, obviously he's referencing just the person that she is. When you talk about someone's ways, you're talking more so about their maybe mannerisms. You're talking about their way they talk, maybe their catchphrases, if you will. That's a terrible way to say that. When I think about my wife, I don't think about her catchphrases. She has a couple of them. I won't repeat them on the podcast, but you've got a way to keep me on your side. He's once again, he's saying that he doesn't really even have a choice in the matter. And as he said in the last verse, in verse 3, that "and happiness I've known proves that it's right." He's not opposing any of this. He's on board with all of this. But he's also just kind of calling it out there and saying, "You've got a way to keep me on your side." He then says in this next line, "You give me cause for love that I can't hide." We talked at the very beginning of this that the man's nickname was the Man in Black. One of the most popular pictures you will ever see of this man is where he is throwing a face like no other and flipping off a camera that is just outstanding. That man, "You give me cause for love that I can't hide." When you picture Johnny Cash in your head, you don't picture him as this lovey kind of guy. But Vivian is bringing this out of him. And he's even saying that he doesn't have a choice in the matter. You got a way to keep me on your side. He's smitten. He can't take it anymore. He's done. I'm in. Because he says in the third line, "For you, I know I'd even try to turn the tide." Now I'm assuming here that this is referring to the tides of the ocean. So to say I turn the tide, to make the tides go the opposite. I mean, this is one of those, "I'll lasso the moon and pull it down for you." This is one of those kind of statements. I'd climb mountains for you. This is one of those statements. "For you, I know I'd even try to turn the tide." He's, at least in this one, in those in those song lyrics of or movie lines, or those corny pickup lines of unattainable abilities. At least when Johnny Cash makes one of those statements, he acknowledges that it's probably not feasible. But he does say he'd try. "I know I'd even try to turn the tide." I probably won't be able to do it, but I'd try. "Because you're mine, I walk the line." And it's really funny, this being, the fourth verse. This is relatively, the end of the song, as far as the lyrics are concerned. When we did our lyric reading, this is where we ended it. But in the recording of the song, he goes back and he sings once again verse 1. He sings it over again. And at first, whenever I was reading through the lyrics and seeing that he goes back and re-sings verse 1, I didn't even really think about it, that, like, as many times as I'd listened to this song, I'd honestly never really noticed that that's what he did, that he went back and re-sang verse 1. And so then I started the song over, and I really paid attention again, and really paid attention again. And a couple of the things that really stuck out to me is the tempo of the song changes. He sings it a bit slower. I keep a close watch on this heart of mine. He enunciates significantly more than he did previously. Another thing that he does whenever he goes back and re-sings verse 1 at the end of the song is he sings with his voice significantly lower than he had been singing. Because Johnny Cash had that great baritone bass voice, a very booming voice. But whenever in the majority of the first part of the song, he's singing kind of in the top of his mouth, back of the throat, top of his mouth. Whenever he goes back and sings verse 1 again at the end of the song, he's singing from the bottom of his throat. He's singing from the diaphragm. He's more so, I guess, like I said, with the enunciation that he's making now with the slower tempo. This is stapling. I keep a close watch on this heart of mine. I keep my eyes wide open all the time. I keep the ends out for the tie that binds. Because you're mine, I walk the line. And it's funny to think as we made a joke about kind of in the second verse as we went through that one, is that his marriage did ultimately end in divorce because of his infidelity, because of his not staying true. So does it take away from the song? No, I don't think it takes away from the song at all, because I truly believe that in 1956, when he was sitting backstage in Texas, he truly meant this. He meant every single word that he wrote. He had zero intention of ever changing. He had zero intention of any of these things ever not being who he was. I mean, in the way that he's singing the song, like I said, and even in verse 3, you hear him smile as he sings. Vivian had him wrapped around her finger, and he loved every second of it. And when he goes back and he re-sings verse 1, and he sings it in a different way than he previously had, and he slows it down, and he sings a little deeper from a different, finding a different breath as he sings. I truly believe that he meant it, and I truly believe that he was promising. Now, where that went, it is what it is. It's also none of our business. Marriage is personal, unless you're famous, in which case everyone knows your business. I think this is a beautiful song as a commentary on love. I think this is a beautiful song for what love should be in the promise that you make to your partner. And even still, that twofold. I keep a close watch on my heart. I keep my eyes open all the time for what might come my way, the temptations, of what might pull me one way or another. While the entire time keeping that knot, that marital knot, tying the knot, keeping the ends out of the rope for the tie that binds. And the entire time, the only reason is because you're mine that you do this, because you walk that line, staying true, never varying from either side, walking straight and narrow, walking the line. As I usually say, going forward, anytime you listen to this song, I mean, I every song that we've done so far in this podcast, I will never listen to them the same again. I always hear them differently. I always hear little nuances. And sadly, I always, tomorrow I'll throw this song on and be like, God damn it, why didn't I mention that? I continually hear new things and new nuances in these songs. And I think that's the beautiful thing about music, is that as many times as you can listen to something, maybe it dredges up a new memory. Maybe it brings up a new feeling. Maybe it transports you back to a specific time. And this song, especially, I mean, like I said, I mean, whenever I hear Johnny Cash in general, if I throw him on while I'm at work or working on the podcast or in the car or what have you, if I throw on Johnny Cash, if he's on for long enough, I always get transported back to sitting in my grandma and grandpa's living room and watching Johnny Cash on the TV, and my grandma talking about how he was a terrible singer. And I just remember back to that time of not, of finding out who Johnny Cash was. And so, I mean, as we continually move along and as we continually progress, we listen to these songs time and time again. From, I keep the ends out for the tie that binds. There's always a reason um, to show the love that we have. And according to Johnny Cash, the only reason we need is because. I think that's a beautiful thing. But, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. It is officially time for the local band spotlight, and I am so fucking stoked about this week's local band spotlight because we have our first local band spotlight that is an international band. Like, are you fucking kidding me? An international band. Today, we have the band Naladipha. These boys are badass. They're making rad music. I wish I could throw up their entire discography on the local bands that don't suck. Naladipha is from Indonesia. I've been talking to these guys for a while. We have met some challenges as far as language barriers, but we've powered through. We've made it work. We've made it happen. I am so incredibly stoked to bring you guys Naladipha today. Naladipha is an alternative band formed in 2017. And before I go a step further, I'm going to apologize right now. I, I, I'm probably going to butcher their names, and I apologize. How many episodes have I butchered their name? Dude, the first episode, Cheer Up Dusty, I butchered their names. That's what I do. I read people's names wrong. It's apparently the biggest fault I have. But let that not take away from the fact that these guys are so fucking sick. I'm like sitting here staring at their names like, Jake, you're gonna fuck it up. You're gonna fuck it up. Whether I do or I don't, let my poise, let my excitement, let my vigor, let that just take over for me for a second here. Anyway, Naladipha is an alternative band formed in 2017, consisting of Samputan, Luis, Pandega, and Fabian. God, I hope I hit that. Oh, I hope I did that right. They say, our band talks about social issues with stomping music. Through our lyrics and songs, Naladipha invites their listeners to be more aware of the environmental and social conditions around us, along with current social issues. Besides that, they also try to see life from a different perspective. Fucking badass. These guys are awesome. We threw up one of their jams on the local band Spotify playlist that we got going, local bands that don't suck. Check them out. The link in our Instagram. Hit up the link tree and just go to local bands that don't suck. It'll take you right to that Spotify playlist. It's fantastic. They're the newest song on there. Check them out on Spotify. Give them a follow on Instagram. I can't say enough good things about these boys. They are fantastic. And as always, support local music. Get out there, put on a mask, support local music. It's getting a little more chilly outside, so to say to go to the park, if anything, I feel bad for the musician playing at the park because I've played outdoor shows before when it's cold, and God, kills your fingers. It hurts so much. Drummers have a blast. They stay pretty warm. But, yeah, get in there, especially get up on those tiny strings. It's tough. It's tough. But get out there. Support local music. Support local musicians. We need it now more than ever. And if you like what we do here at The Elephant Wire, support us as well. Go to anchor.fm/theelephantwire. How about I fuck up our own website too? God, I am batting 1,000 today. This has been fantastic. I told you guys at the very beginning that I'm hungover, and I think it's finally. I started sweating some of it out, and then when I got toward the end of the song, I kind of relaxed a little bit and started to imbibe in the lyrics, and I quit sweating the booze out from the sin I put in my body yesterday. Support local music. If you would like to support the Elephant Wire, as trash as we are, go to anchor.fm/the Elephant Wire podcast and support us there. As always, the best way that you can support us is follow us on Instagram, like us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Follow us everywhere you can. Go on YouTube, like our videos, share our videos, everything that you can. This has been episode 8 of the Elephant Wire podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed it. Our breakdown of I Walk the Line by Johnny Cash. Thank you so much, folks. We'll see you here next Monday. As always, fuck the man. Hail Satan. Hug your mom. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.